Ben ritrovati al CICAP Fest. È arrivato il momento di parlare con la dottoressa Edith Widder, oceanografa e biologa marina. È una delle figure più importanti per quanto riguarda lo studio delle profondità oceaniche, e oggi scopriremo anche il perché. È cofondatrice e scienziata senior della Ocean Research and Conservation Association, una no-profit per la conservazione degli oceani. Negli anni ha ricevuto numerosi premi e comi di merito per le sue esplorazioni delle profondità marine. Le sue ricerche sono state presentate alla BBC, PBS, Discovery Channel e National Geographic, e anche in TED Talk di successo. Benvenuta al CICAP Fest, dottoressa Widder.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Lei ha trascorso la maggior parte della sua vita di ricercatrice a studiare le profondità più remote degli oceani, luoghi inaccessibili agli esseri umani a causa delle condizioni fisiche dell'oceano profondo, e luoghi tra l'altro che non tutti sanno essere pieni di vita, nonostante la pressione e la mancanza di luce. È davvero così? E perché è così importante studiare queste parti remote del nostro pianeta?
So it is absolutely filled with life. That was actually one of the things that I was so struck with the first time I went down in a deep diving suit. And it didn't look like there was a huge amount of life out there until I turned out the lights. And then everything was flashing and glowing, and I realized how much life was out there. And this is all part of making life possible on our ocean planet. We know the ocean is critical to making life possible. That's why whenever we look for life on other planets, we look for oceans. But we really don't know the mechanics of it. And clearly, if we want to continue to survive on the only rock in the universe that we know of right now that does sustain life, we better get a lot smarter about figuring out how it all works so we don't mess it up.
Insieme alla sua squadra di ricerca e ad altri scienziati a livello mondiale ha avuto la possibilità di filmare una delle creature leggendarie e mitiche della nostra storia, descritte in decine di racconti, ovvero il calamaro gigante, filmato proprio nel suo habitat naturale per la prima volta in assoluto. Ci racconta qualcosa di più di questa incredibile ricerca e scoperta, e poi qual è stata l'intuizione che l'ha aiutata?
So the giant squid was a creature of legend for a very long time. Sailors would talk about this creature so enormous that when seen floating at the surface, it could be mistaken for an island. And if they approached, it could drag men and ships to watery graves. But scientists were highly skeptical that there was anything that large out there. And then finally, a specimen was collected off the Canary Islands and brought back to Paris, actually, and reported to the scientific community. And there was just enormous interest. Then Jules Verne was writing his 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea science fiction story, and he incorporated a giant squid into that. And so it's just become this magnet for natural history buffs. And there were many expeditions put together to try to get footage of the giant squid in its natural habitat. There were plenty of specimens that had been seen dead because they happen to float when they die, but seeing a living specimen in its natural habitat was kind of the holy grail of natural history cinematography to do that. I wasn't a giant squid hunter. My expertise was all of these creatures in the ocean that make light. And in my efforts to figure out how they were using their light, I had created an optical lure that imitated certain bioluminescent displays. And one of those displays seemed to be very attracted to squid. So that's how I ended up getting invited on this major giant squid hunt off Japan in 2012. And I had a camera system that I had developed that was unobtrusive, that we could just lower off the back of the ship and leave it floating around for a couple of days at a time. It went down to 750 meters, and it had this optical lure, and the red lights that I used to be able to see whatever was out there without being seen, so I could be unobtrusive. And the second time we deployed it, actually the first time we deployed it with the optical lure on it, we recorded a giant squid. And because this particular expedition was filmed for television, there were television cameras rolling as we saw this footage for the first time. So they caught scientists just completely losing their minds and screaming their heads off at finally seeing a giant squid in its natural habitat. And it was a huge deal. There was a major documentary that was put out about it, but they kept it kind of under wraps because they wanted to come out with the Discovery Channel documentary. But then in 2019, we did it again with the same camera system in the Gulf of Mexico, and this time it wasn't paid for by television, so we released the video to the world, and it went viral. It just went absolutely all around the world. And, I didn't think there'd be as much interest because it was the second time, but oh boy, was I wrong. People are crazy for this stuff. It was amazing to actually see it in its natural state. And for example, one of the questions had always been, was it an active hunter, or was it what's called a sit and wait predator, where it would conserve energy by just waiting for food to come by and then snap its tentacles out? I always believed it was probably an active predator given those enormous eyes. It has the largest eyes of any animal known. And in 2019, we recorded many minutes of it hunting, tracking the optical lure, which was bouncing up and down a little bit because of the line attaching it to the surface. There was wave action at the surface, and you could see the squid just tracking along with it. It was just perfect.
Gli oceani sono la linfa vitale della Terra, del pianeta, e coprono oltre il 70% della superficie della Terra. Regolano il tempo atmosferico, la temperatura, insomma, in definitiva sostengono tutti gli organismi viventi. Tuttavia oltre l'80% è ancora inesplorato. Quali saranno secondo lei i prossimi passi, gli sforzi che dovremmo fare per meglio comprendere le dinamiche oceaniche, e in che modo la ricerca scientifica sta lavorando per questo?
As I said before, we really don't understand how this whole system works. So this thing called the carbon pump, which obviously is of great interest right now because of all the carbon dioxide being released by the burning of fossil fuels, a lot of that has been being taken up by the ocean, which is having a variety of impacts, including acidification of the ocean. We're actually changing the chemistry of this enormous volume of water. It's a staggering volume of water because you said over 71% of the surface of the Earth is covered by water. That's just surface area. The oceans are very deep and represent more than 99.5% of the living space on the planet. And so how all of this feeds together to create these cycles that make life possible on the planet, we have to understand a lot more about. And then there's just fantastic discoveries to be made, wonderful things like animals we don't even know about yet. And I think that may be important just for exciting people's interest. We've kind of lost touch with the natural world. And I know kids that think, oh, well, the only possibility for exploration is space exploration. That's not true. We've barely begun to explore our planet because we've explored so little of the ocean. And, there's going to be fantastic discoveries to make of new animals and new chemistries. So, for example, my field of bioluminescence, the chemistries are hugely valuable for all kinds of genetic engineering and biotechnology research. And there's a lot of those chemistries that haven't been worked out yet or even discovered yet. So there's enormous opportunities for new discoveries. We need explorers now more than at any time in human history. That is baked into our DNA, this desire to explore. And it's what has made it possible for us to survive and adapt to life on this planet. And we need to tap into that instinct right now to have a better understanding of our planet so that we can better protect it.
Nel suo ultimo libro, pubblicato da poco, intitolato Sotto la soglia delle tenebre, lei racconta anni di ricerche e scoperte sorprendenti. Ad esempio, insomma, che nelle profondità oceaniche non ci sono solo creature giganti, ma anche quelle più piccole che si sono adattate a questo mondo. Ci racconta qualcosa in più su questo piccolo e poco conosciuto mondo e perché poi è così importante per la vita sul pianeta.
So one of the things I describe in the book is one of the mysteries that's intrigued me for a very long time, and that has to do with this concept of marine snow. It's called marine snow because it looks exactly like snow. It's these white particles drifting down through the ocean, and it's the food that feeds all of the life down in the depths of the ocean. There's no photosynthesis going on down there, so energy is captured at the surface, and then the things that die and sink are what carries that food down into the depths. But how do animals find it? Well, it turns out a lot of that marine snow is bioluminescent. And so I think bioluminescence plays a very big role in this whole carbon cycle that we're so interested in. So one of the theories, which is intriguing, is that the anglerfish lure that dangles in front of the big jaw of the anglerfish is meant to imitate that glowing marine snow, because the bacteria need to be consumed by an animal in order to stay in the food-rich gut of that fish instead of falling down to the bottom of the ocean where there's no food. And so being bioluminescent allows it to stay up in the water column and be found and consumed over and over again, and therefore always have access to a food source.
Il suo lavoro però, proprio anche dato dalle condizioni delle profondità oceaniche, è anche stato pieno di momenti pericolosi, come forse accadeva ai primi esploratori di secoli passati. È così? È stato così?
Oh, there have been a couple of moments that were a little bit dicey, but I still think diving in a submersible is safer than driving a car. Yeah, no, there was one time where the submersible leaked, and you definitely don't want seawater coming into the submersible. But as I mentioned in the book, it's actually served me well as a mantra in life. When things are going bad, I just think, well, could be worse, could be seawater in the sub, and it puts everything in perspective.
Something like that.
And you're talking about enormous pressures in the deep ocean. So, out in space, it's just a difference of one atmosphere, but in the deep ocean, it's such enormous pressures that just a pinhole leak could cut through your body like a hot knife through butter.
Gli oceani sono stati per milioni di anni e sono tutt'oggi i migliori regolatori per quanto riguarda le temperature, per l'assorbimento della CO2, per la produzione di ossigeno, solo per citarne alcuni. Perché secondo lei non mettiamo la stessa attenzione nella loro protezione, come stiamo cercando di fare per esempio con le foreste, con i ghiacciai e così via? Secondo lei cosa dobbiamo fare ora, quest'oggi, per preservarli?
Yeah, so one of the points I make in the book is that humans have this history of exploitation following on exploration. We explore a place and then we exploit it. But actually, in the ocean, we've done it in the opposite direction. We're actually exploiting the ocean before we've explored it by dragging nets through the deep ocean, pulling up animals to the point of, quadrillions and quadrillions of fish being scooped out of the ocean, and nets dragged across the bottom of the ocean to capture fish and shrimp, bottom dwellers, that just wipe out deep sea coral reefs that took thousands of years to grow and now won't sustain life again for hundreds of years. And the problem is a lot of this is going on out of sight and out of mind. And so that's why I think that this push towards exploration is so important, because people don't protect what they don't know about or what they don't love. And we have an opportunity now with this new access to the deep ocean to much advanced awareness about the true beauty and specialness of the deep ocean, and get more people involved in its protection.
Quindi questa nuova attenzione che si sta creando, secondo lei, aiuterà a formare nuove generazioni di ricercatori e biologi marini che si interesseranno a questo tema?
I think if we can get a higher level of interest in some of these wonderful mysteries that are so intriguing in the deep ocean, the amazing animals, the amazing adaptations, this whole concept of the carbon pump, all of these things are just so exciting, but we have to let the next generation know about them and get them excited about it so that they can explore where we've left off.
Grazie ancora alla professoressa Widder, grazie per il suo tempo, per la sua testimonianza di oggi. Non mi resta che salutarvi e augurarvi buon proseguimento con il CICAP Fest.